Okay, hello everyone, and thanks Andrew for organizing this symposium. My name is Lenin Felician, and I'm a second year PhD student at the University of Tübingen, and my research focuses on material culture of Hadza people. So today I would like to, well, basically add to Margarita's talk uh, about how social media and influencers are increasingly producing viral content featuring the Hadza and how these practices raise serious ethical and post-colonial concerns about representation, consent, and heritage exploitation in this digital age. Um, well, Andrew and Margarita already talked about who the Hadza are, so I will not go much deeper into that, but I would like to add that apart from hunting and gathering and deep ecological knowledge, the herds are facing modern challenges, including land encroachment, tourism activities, changing ecological conditions, and now this digital visibility. Um, okay, so my core argument is that influencers' videos can turn cultural difference into digital content when they frame Hadza people through primitive stereotypes, which they pretty much do, as we have seen in the previous presentation. And I'm not claiming that all media about the Hadza is exploitative, but there are community-led media, collaborative research, or respectful documentation that are valuable. The concern is with the content practices that make cultural difference entertaining for global audience while leaving questions of consent, benefit, and narrative control unresolved. So the Hadza historically have been a center of research for more than a century now, and they have often been portrayed as an insular and uh, also authentic only when visibly traditional. Also used as a proxy for Paleolithic man. And across this scholarship, the same descriptive frame keeps returning. Hadza people appear variable because they are imagined as, you know, uh, isolated and, as I said, closer to a prehistoric past. And that narrative has influenced academic writing, tourist discourse, journalism, and now social media. So my presentation follows the movement of this representational habit into influencer culture. So here I ask how videos frame culture difference and what kinds of relationship they construct between the influencer, the Hadza participants, and the audience. The most important point is that the public video is only one layer. It shows the final edited story, but it usually does not show how consent was explained, whether there was payment agreements or whether participants can control, the circulation of this media, the video that are circulating online. My analysis is based on publicly circulating videos and the visible elements that shape their meaning. I believe as Margareta's presentation was. And I analyze how creators frame encounters, how captions prepare the audience to interpret them, how editing produce surprise, and how they respond. At the same time, I try to avoid making arguments that require interviews or community consultation because it's not raw data. And as I cannot know for sure what, each filmed person understood, wanted, or received during the process. So I try to situate the influencer content in a longer story of outsider representation. As I mentioned before, early researchers, journalists, and tourists often made the Hadza legible through categories such as isolation, simplicity, or closeness to the past. And therefore, social media does not invent that narrative, but it's kind of changes its speed, scale, and I would say incentive structure, because now the audience is now global, and the circulation is rapid. It's the internet, and the creator may gain attention or even income from performance of cultural differences that from. And as you can see on the screen, on the left is the image from the Colossian expedition in the 1930s, and the right image is the most recent one in 2026. And I took this screenshot, I think, in February when I was presenting at the British Institute in South Nairobi, the same presentation. So by that time, it was 1.2 million views. Right now, it should be more, I believe. The message is still the same, almost 100 years later, reinforcing the primitive stereotype. And what we see in this screen now, on the screen now, is two scenarios that are almost 100 years apart. But again, as I said, the message is still the same. So basically, what we're witnessing right now is not a break from this history, but a technological continuation of it. Academic authority is now replaced with algorithmic visibility, if I may say. On the right, this So the left image is translated from the German text by Colossian, and the right one is translated from the uh, Hindu, I believe it's Hindu, yes, from Instagram. I try to blur out the accounts but again, I was able to post the images because they are public. The contemporary phenomenon, as Margareta presented, it's all about, performing the primitive and getting all this attention. And usually we get all these reaction formats, contrast formats, and gifts, where Hadza participants are shown testing uh, or encountering unfamiliar technologies or food for the first time, and traditional life placed against packaged technologies. And, the creator becomes the giver of gifts, the guide and the moral center of the scene. And I will try to play this. I hope the time allows. So you can definitely tell that this is are all not part of the Hadza traditions, but they are being introduced and they are filmed, and the Hadza are positioned in a certain way to perform, for the camera, and you know the influencers get all these views and all the benefits that come with it. And this So the Hadza are positioned as, encountering modernity for the first time, even though this framing is misleading and I would say staged. For example, in this case, in this video, you can see a bridge is clearly visible in the background. And we both know, I think, Andrew, you would agree that for those who have been in the Hadza country, that the Hadza camps are usually far from permanent infrastructure, but you can see the bridge behind them. So this is not, uh, Snippet is not the usual life of the Hadza, so it's kind of staged for the views. And the audience, the captions and comments, invite viewers to feel the shock, amusement, and pity, which also Margarita brought in during her presentation. Also, sometimes admiration. But I'll turn myself more into uh, this part, like this is my tribe, because some people try to view this as kind of discriminating, and they see the bigger picture, how these influencers are trying to use these the Hadza for content and views and virality. So all these raises ethical concerns, and consent is actually an important one, because a short video can move far beyond the original filming context. A participant may agree to a local interaction without fully understanding that the clip can be reposted or monetized or remixed, or stored indefinitely. And here I'm not claiming that consent never occurs. Maybe it does, but I argue that the video rarely makes the consent process visible, and that ethical consent must include, the realities of uh, of the platform saturation, which we usually never see. Also, narrative control. This is about who decides what the audience sees and how the scene is interpreted. In many influencer video, the creator controls the frame, the captions, and the upload. They may also gain followers, income, or sponsorship opportunities, but the Hadza participants may appear in the content, but they may not have comparable power over circulation or interpretation. And this asymmetry is why the concept of extraction is relevant in this case, because we see value flowing from the film encounter into the creator's platform economy and not vice versa. So together, these frameworks help analyze how cultural visibility can become profitable and also unequal and detached from the community authority. And digital colonialism shows how the other cultural practices become raw materials for algorithmic monetization, but also post-colonial theory shows us how they appear visible but are denied narrative control. And we see how visual anthropology influences bypass. In visual anthropology, we see how these influencers bypass these standards. Broader implication of all this. So the implications extend beyond a single, video clip. Because these videos circulate globally through shares, reposits, search results, etc. And as a result, future viewers may encounter these representations detached from the local context. And if the digital archive is shaped mainly by outsiders and platform incentives, it can become a distorted record of who the ads are imagined to be. And therefore, the future generation come up with all these images that have no local context. And therefore, ethical media practice should begin with community protocols and digital consent that reflects how platforms actually work. It should also include participation in the narrative, transparent benefit sharing, and I believe accountability for the people who profit from circulation of these viral videos. And I believe this gets to reframe the Hadza not as passive subjects requiring outside protection, but as rights-bearing participants with authority over their own representation, which at the moment is lacking. And to conclude, this presentation argues that social media has created a new arena for an old problem where outsiders making meaning from indigenous cultural differences for their own benefit. And I believe, of course, the answer is not to remove the Hadza from media visibility, but it is important to ask whether the visibility is chosen, contextualized, collaborative, and beneficial. Because when communities control their own narrative, digital representation can move away from extraction, as I mentioned earlier, and toward respect, accountability, and shared authority. And therefore, ethical storytelling requires all this collaboration and consent, and in order to empower the community itself. And I thank you very much for your attention. And this is the end of my presentation.
Thank you very much, Lenin. Simone, your hand is up. Feel free to unmute yourself and ask your question.
I've not a question. I searched some videos online about these topics, and I found a video made by Happiness Project. Maybe it was one of the made video that was analyzed by Margherita about the Adzas, and I was reading the comments, and I'm seeing in the comments what Margherita was saying before and what you said in your presentation, and it's really interesting to see that. And I also found another YouTube channel that's called another Tribal People Try that are it's made from people from Pakistan, and they also have these. They try to make videos to look more primitive, I think, because older videos are we try McDonald's for the first time, we tried KFC for the first time, but though these videos are, I think, more ethical, as you were saying before, because they are made by those people, not by outsiders. But I don't know what tribe is it. I don't know if they're making for content, but it's not a question. Sorry, it was only to add something else. Thank you for your presentation. So it was really interesting.
Thank you very much.
Margherita, you have your hand up. Comment, question, feel free to go ahead.
Yeah, it was more of I was thinking, and I wanted to ask him if he had my same experience, but I have noticed that the people that are actually racialized, they tend to like push this type of narrative, which for me it's bizarre, I would say. And to answer Simone, because he talked about Progetto Happiness. Yeah, this is one of the video that I analyzed, and I said that this video is the best, I would say, between all of the Hadza representation video, even though it still had few things that me and the Professor Harvey felt were a little bit weird. For example, the presence of so many dogs, which the Professor Harvey said it's not that common in the Hadza land. And I wanted to even say that a few days ago, I watched a documentary on Piraha. I don't know if you guys know it's okay, cool. I see someone. Yeah, nice. And I think it's like I felt a little bit on the same page with with what it's happening with the Hadza, like this trying to portray them in a specific way, but at the same time we don't want it as a linguist, but at the same time we kind of don't like the fact that uh, they are being quote unquote polluted by civilization, modern civilization. And at the end, I was thinking that this is something that we should think about, that we should give even the opportunity to the Hadza people to change, which is something that, like, while I was doing my research, it wasn't really in my mind. I was like, no, I don't like this. They are polluting them and it's not okay. But at the end, I don't know. This is what I thought. So I wanted to ask, going back to the topic, Lenin, if he had the same view, if he thought that, like, he felt the same. So more of your feelings while conducting this research, because compared to Daniele, Giulia, and Giuseppe's research, our research was more on a human side. So when it came to me, like it comes to me, like it triggered inside of me certain things that it was nice to look at. So I wanted to know if it was only me as an Italian, or if even Lenin, that I don't know where he comes from, had the same feelings or different.
Thank you, Margarita. I come from Tanzania, actually, the same country as the Hadza. And right now, as we speak, I'm in ARC, and I'm going to meet the Hadza in a few days. And I also want to talk about it in person to just get their own perception on what they think. And as Andrew mentioned earlier, most of them do not feel good about this. They even had a community meeting about this, and it might be a few people who, feel like they relate to the social media environment, but most of them do not like how they are being portrayed. And therefore, I want to get the whole feeling when I meet the Hadza people. But to answer your question, yes, I felt the same. I feel like that's what triggered me even to think about this topic, and I would say that's what probably prompted the same kind of narrative we had in our presentations. I mean, the same topic. So I felt it not only from outsider, but also from Tanzanians as well, like immediate tribes within Tanzania, like the way they look at the Hadza and the way they portray them. And you can see it in the comments. It's a good thing that I can read in Swahili, so I understand what they say. And you can immediately see how they are being portrayed. And yeah, it's kind of insane.
There was a comment on Piraha, and Bonnie has included a reference in the chat. Bonnie also has her hand up. So Bonnie, feel free to unmute yourself and ask your question.
Oh, yeah, there's a lot more on Piraha. We won't even go into that. I don't have a question so much as some comments. I also thought about the Tribal People Try videos because there just seems to be this genuine joy in sharing cross-culturally in those videos, and it probably depends on, yeah, who's editing them, and that they have a lot of, agency in how they're representing themselves there. So the question of pity, the first tourist I saw in the late 90s, so we're talking 30 years ago, giving t-shirts. That was a thing even back then. So it was like, we want to see these people who don't have nice looking clothes, we'll give them t-shirts. So there's that sense of tourists being, I'm not sure it's 100% that they want to feel pity so much as they want to feel wealthy and want to feel like they are benefactors. How much is that a motivation among tourists? That's sort of just one thing to think about. And so it's like not it's the opposite of extraction. You're not extracting something, you're actually giving something to people. Yet how is it still, which of the frameworks that you mentioned put that in a colonialist perspective? It's that's a kind of a question. But then my other question is, that buffalo picture looked like AI to me. So that brings a whole different layer to the digital colonialism. So if you want to comment on either of those comments.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. It also looked AI to me. Absolutely. I also saw it as AI. And immediately when I opened it, you see the true Hadza people, but the image, like the cover, it's AI produced. What was the other question?
The role of tourism is, or tourism as a way to make tourists feel wealthier than they perhaps actually are.
Oh, well, I don't know really.
Certainly could fit into this
That's just,
idea of white saviorism, right?
yeah, absolutely. It's not about the Hadza, it's about the tourists themselves, as Bonnie said.
I just want to say that I think that these two talks sort of going together are particularly valuable because we see Margarita really sort of zeroes in on the matter of the comments and breaking them apart into sort of different topics. And we can see these sort of different threads of discourse. And I think that for sort of a starting attempt at working with complex and frankly disturbing data, I think that this is, I think this is very good. Lenin's work, I think I really appreciate it because he shows us that what we find now in the comments on social media has not arisen in a vacuum, that this is essentially an echo that has its roots in previous academic work. And in a sense, it forces us to re-examine our positions as academics who are in a role of meaning making, whether we admit to it or not, and may have a large amount of influence on how people are portrayed or misportrayed in the future. So I really appreciate these two talks and how they speak to each other. And I'm really happy that we could include this kind of thread in this symposium.